Hello everybody. Let me just pop it onto a different view so I can see what I'm doing. All right then everybody, I hope you are well. Before we go any further, I just want you to come into the chat. If you can see me and hear me, just give me a thumbs up. Just let me know that everything is working fine. Just to make sure everything is okay. Pardon?
Buffering.
Buffering, we are a little bit for some reason or other. We seem to have a little bit of buffering going on. So just, oh dear, that's not good, is it? That's not a very good, all right, so everybody, please, can you just let me know in the chat how things are getting on? Oh dear, that's not looking good, is it? YouTube is not receiving enough video. Well, we're giving you...
This happened at the start last week.
It did, didn't it?
Fine.
Yes, it did.
I think we're okay.
Are we all right?
Seems to be.
Yep, everybody's saying okay. I do apologise for the buffering. I don't know what's going on with that, so just bear with us, and we will certainly do what we can.
Open widget is giving an option.
Yeah, it just says poor for the stream, and then it sorted itself out, didn't it? Yeah. Should we go? Yeah?
Yeah, give it a go.
Yep, everybody. All right then, so a warm welcome this rather hot and sticky Wednesday afternoon. It's the 17th of June. Louise and I have not stopped all day because we're going to be reopening on the 22nd of June. So we've been trying to sort out the shop and we literally have not stopped. So thank you all very much for joining me today. Before I go any further, last week we did have a request, and the week before, or about a druzy. So from Gillian, and I'm pleased to say that Jodie from Hibiscus Days Jewellery up in Scotland very kindly sent us a druzy, and wasn't it a cracker, Louise? So we have got this lovely druzy that we're going to make up something with it. And Jodie, if you are on, can you just, because I remember seeing your name a couple of weeks ago. I think you ordered a couple of bits and pieces from me. If I haven't sent it, just please let me know in the chat if you're watching. And obviously if you're not watching, you won't know about it, but I will contact you. So just let me know if I haven't sent you what you ordered, and I will certainly get that in the post ASAP. So.
There's a buzz on my mic.
There's a buzz on your mic.
Mm.
Is there really?
When I speak, just white noise.
Damn! I hadn't turned you on. So I think I've turned you on. So you should be getting some... have to say something now, Louise.
Hello. Am I audible now?
I think you should be audible. I think you should be audible. I think I should be audible too. See, we do have these little technical errors, don't we? Every single week. Every single week. So, Louise, how's your mic?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Everybody. Yeah, everybody can hear?
My mic, oh, no sound.
Not from you. Oh.
I can just shout. Turn this off, I'll just shout.
Why do you shout? No, you're on there. You talk, Louise.
Oh, can you hear me now? Oh, yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, okay.
No, I'm still buzzing. Oh no, am I?
You shouldn't be buzzing, you should be fine.
Okay. Oh, that's better. Okay, fabulous. Brilliant. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Welcome to the question and answer. Finally, 6 minutes late. Welcome to the question and answer, 17th of June. A little bit rushed today, so we're going to start off with a first question. Just bear with us, we seem to have a little bit of a poor stream going on. I'm not quite sure. I know they were working on the pylons around the corner this morning, so apologies if you are getting a bit of a buffering that goes around. Do apologise. Anyway, let's have the first question, Louise.
Okay, Louise, another Louise is saying, I have purchased 2mm sapphire cabochons to make a pair of earrings. I was going to flush set them. Is this the best setting? And if so, what size drill bits do I need to buy?
Okie dokie. Really awkward to flush set a cabochon. It can be done, not as easy as it is when it comes to setting a faceted stone, and I will draw what I mean. Overhead camera, nice, nice, nice. So when you come to, here is your plate that you obviously drilling into, and you drill your hole, and then you come along with a setting burr that is like this, and you drill down, and you get then this shaped hole. Yeah, a faceted stone is obviously faceted, and it's this proportion, and that proportion fits very nicely into that setting because the stone sits nicely in that setting. The problem you've got if you have a cabochon is that, yes, you drill your hole, then you obviously do your setting burr, and you end up with a hole like that. Now, the cabochon has to sit on this edge, and it depends if you've got a very shallow cabochon like that, or you've got a really deep cabochon. Depends now on how far you actually set this. You're going to have to make this very, very shallow. From here to here, it's going to have to be very, very shallow because of this little area we have on the side. So if you have something like this and you had a very shallow cabochon, that is not going to work because you've got all this metal to push over. If you had a very deep cabochon like this, well, that isn't so bad because you've only got this little amount of metal here to push over. So it is a lot more tricky because a faceted stone like this is pretty much proportion-wise ideal proportions. When it comes to cabochons, they are going to be awkward. They are going to be shallow, deep, more sort of in between. They may have a bottom of the belly, a rounded bottom like that, which is going to interfere with your bird out hole. So that would be your hole. So if you have a cabochon with a rounded bottom, it'll sort of sit up here. So very awkward to do. If you're brand new at flush setting, I wouldn't advise cabochons. I would advise faceted stones. They're far easier to sort of practice on. Plus, when you're looking at you're looking at sapphires, aren't you? Sapphires aren't going to be too bad. So if you've got 2mm cabochons, the problem with cabochons, again, they're not necessarily going to be 2mm. You're going to have to measure it with something really, really accurate. Something like a slide rule, a vernier, electronic slide rule, something like this. You're going to have, just put the battery cover off, because they're not often calibrated. Faceted stones are pretty much the right sort of size. So you're going to have to take great care. If they are 2mm, you're going to need a 2mm straight-sided setting burr to set. It's as simple as that. If they're slightly bigger, get a slightly bigger burr and so forth. So it's not the ideal way to start setting. If you're new, practice with faceted stones and practice on some scrap little bits of perhaps some silver first of all, so you know the correct depths. But the important bit is this. It is the distance between, wrong end of my pen, it is the distance between, it's a shallow one, medium one, and a very deep one. These are all my cabochons. So it depends then on how far you actually set these into the metal, so to speak. Does that make sense? Because that's the metal coming up here. So you've got to burnish over these edges. Tricky. I wish you luck. Yes?
Where's your whiteboard?
It's by there. This someone just asked where my whiteboard. I'll show you my whiteboard now. Come back onto me there. Well, there it is. There. There's my whiteboard. It's still in the wrapping. It's a lovely. Oh gosh, it's a lovely whiteboard. Yes, Louise fancied it at home actually, so we can put all our what's it called? Our plans to conquer the rule and dominate the world, aren't we?
Many list of jobs.
Many list of jobs. Okay, so there's my whiteboard. Yeah, it should be up by here. I'm going to have to buy another one for home, I think. Okay, everybody. Yeah, we've got about a 15 or 20-second delay at the moment, so I apologise for that. It still says our streaming is poor. Do apologise. But anyway, let's crack on with the next question, shall we, Louise?
Okay. Len is asking, do you file the top of your bezel wire to make it thinner and easier to burnish around a cabochon?
Yes. Sometimes you can do. If you're using something like fine silver, well then you don't necessarily have to, because the fine silver is pretty much bendable. Somebody was asking me about setting thick bezels. What's the best way to hammer them over? And if you do have, and I will draw again, is a nice. If you've got something like quite nice and big like this, those are absolutely huge, aren't they? And you have a cabochon that comes over like this. So this is your cabochon. These are your walls. You're never going to push this metal over. It's too thick. So yes, what I would do is simply file almost parallel with the stone itself. Then you've only got this amount of metal then to push over, which means you're going to be left up with this sort of shape on that side there. And that will make sure then that this little area here is a lot thinner that you can push over. I would still do it anyway, really, I think, because if it's going to be easier to burnish over, it's going to be safer for you to do so with a burnisher, with bezel rocker, or with a prong pusher, or even with a hammer action handpiece. So anything that would make life easier forcing it onto the stone, because if you're really forcing it and you're forcing it really hard, and if you're holding the stone in this other hand or in a ring clamp, that sort of thing, well then you've got to make life easier. If you're using a GRS Benchmate system, it's not so bad. You can really push and really force that the metal over. But yeah, at the end of the day, yes, I would make that a little bit on the thinner side. I do apologise, I just realised my camera's all the way up there and I'm actually looking at the monitor, so I apologise if I'm looking slightly below you. The camera's up there, I should have put it down. Anyway, so yes, file it a little bit and then put a pumice wheel on it before you set the stone into it, or polish the edge before you set the stone into it, and you'll be spot on. Next question, please, Louise.
Okay, this question is from Julia. When setting a square or pear-shaped faceted stone, what are the best position for prongs if I make my own setting?
The best, let me just draw a pear shape first of all. So we're going to do a pear shape like this. There we go, better. Okay, so this is your pear shaped stone, and this is going to be your square shaped stone. However square shaped stones go, something like, I don't know, whatever. So if you had this, the best arrangement, if you're not that experienced on making settings for pear-shaped stones, I would not make a little tip that goes and covers over this point. Really, really difficult. I would end up putting a claw here, and one sort of by there, and one by there. So I would have 4 claws in that case. You could even have another one if you're really unsure and put it by there and by there. You do have to make sure that this point here isn't sticking out too far above the claws themselves. So always make sure that these claws are pretty close to the end. Again, if you're using a square stone, if you have 4 claws, you could put one there, one in the middle, although that really isn't safe. But what I think I would do is put one there and one there, basically to try and protect those corners as best I possibly could. So those would be my claws towards the corners, protecting those sharp little points of a square shaped stone. And likewise here, have 6 and put them that way around. Not much point putting one down the bottom here, it looks a bit silly, but space them out evenly around the stone like that, and that would be best. So always try and come towards the end to protect that little tip there. It really, really does help. Next question, please.
Okay, this is Michael. I have an EZ torch with the 3 nozzles. I'm having trouble melting down brass and keep it flowing while I pour it. Which nozzle should I use, and should I open the gas and airflow up all the way?
Okay, so the EZ torch, yeah, I would put on the biggest flame you could possibly get from the torch. Brass is going to be something that is going to take a lot of heat, especially if you're using and trying to melt down quite a large amount of it. So yeah, turn your gas up full, make sure you get all the gas, make sure the valve is open full, put the biggest nozzle on as well that you could possibly can do. And if you can adjust the air on it, make sure there's plenty of air being drawn into it as well. That would be the best thing to do. I've never really tried to melt brass, but I know it's a really horrible type of metal to try and melt. So as much heat as you could possibly get onto the brass, fantastic. In a crucible, make sure you have bricks around you that are not absorbing the heat, but actually reflecting the heat back at you as well. So none of the heat is wasted by letting it be absorbed all the way around. And then when you've got to pour, make sure that you have the crucible and the torch always together when you pour it. Never have the torch and then take the torch off and then pour it, because it's going to cool down. Make sure that torch is on the molten brass all the time when you pour it. And when you pour it, make sure it's being poured through the flame as well to keep it as hot and molten as possible when it enters the mold. So yeah, gas full on, biggest flame you could possibly get. That would be the best thing that I could possibly suggest. Next question, Louise. You're drawing a nice picture there of me and you.
No, I'm just crossing out something I wrote down. Actually, if you must know. Sandra is adding on to Len's question.
Yes.
I haven't completed a bezel yet. Oh, she's broken her right hand. I'm sorry to hear that. But my bezel wire is dead soft and wraps super easily around a stone. Will it work harden when I burnish it?
So yeah, it would do, but then what you also got to think about, because the bezel wire is really soft, you only notice that it is soft because you sort of gain access to it being moved. As soon as you have pushed that onto the stone, even though it may be soft, there's nothing being able to move it back and forth, so to speak. So when you burnish it, you're going to burnish it nice and tight around and onto the stone, so it should not be able to be moved. Does that make sense? And yes, by burnishing it, you are going to be work hardening it as well. So yeah, burnish it with a what have I got in here? Have I got a burnisher? Yeah, something like a nice burnisher like this, a nice straight-sided or a curved burnisher, something like this that you can really burnish back and forth against the edge of the bezel, and that should really help it work harden. But I wouldn't worry too much, Daisy, because it's going to be flat against the stone and nothing's going to be able to push it to make it come undone. But yeah, it's a good question. Thank you. Next question, please, Louise.
Okay, next question is Ingrid. When you make a tension ring with a bridge under, how do you get the stone in place? Do you bend the sides out?
Oh, Ingrid, yes, you emailed me earlier on this afternoon with that. I remember you seeing it. So it is, when I've talked about adding the bridge underneath, it works for me because I've got access to an arc welder, a puck, that enables me to solder right next to a stone. So I'm quite fortunate when it comes to that. I think what I would do, depending on the type of stone you're going to be setting, let me just try and draw this for you. What I would do is you have the ring coming up. So say you have this type of, shank. You have the gap that's in the shank. I would perhaps then put a little ring underneath here to join these two together. So when you look down on top, you see this. Look, so there's the ring then that would go underneath, and there's the ring. Does that make sense? So this is the ring that I've soldered underneath. There we go, you can actually see it now. Then what I would do is, again, you could do it this way. You could sort of come down with your straight-sided setting burr and do that, okay? And then your faceted stone would sit in this little area by here. And then you can burnish over the edge like you would do with a flush setting. Or what you could do is pretty much, yeah, because that would make that curve there, the stone would go in and then you can just burnish over the edge. Or you could actually, let me just think, come along and just do an undercut. Let me just work on, let me just think. So those are the shank here. Just simply, there's the ring that goes underneath. You could just put a little cut like that with one of these burrs that would look like this, like a 90-degree setting burr. This is my burr. You could do that. And then what I would do, is where you've got the ring that is round, I would squash it so it goes into that sort of shape, so it's not quite round. So again, my whiteboard would have been really handy, wouldn't it, when it comes to this now. So I would perhaps squash the ring, so the ring is that sort of shape, like that. Yep, so squash out of shape. I would put the stone in place here. And then, as you then make the ring round, completely round, it's going to force those ends then together. Does that make sense? So you make the ring and you open up the top, put the stone in, and then you make the ring round and it will clamp the stone in place. So that's the best bet, is this. With a straight-sided burr, and just treat it almost like a half flush set setting, basically, because you've only got those little edges instead of it going all the way around. But that would be your best bet. So, what was the question? I've gone on a bit, haven't I? There, yeah, that's it, yeah. And yeah, yeah. Or if you've got a puck or a laser welder, put the stone in place under tension, and then you can puck your little ring into place then when the stone's in place. Yeah, there we go. How's that? Next question then, please, Louise. It's a long one, that was.
Okay, this next question is from Author. Do you have a tip how to solder and position 3 bezels in a row on a ring, please? Mine was a disaster.
The way to do it, is you could use little clamps. You can buy little titanium clamps like this that you would make up. They come in a strip, you would make them up and you would use the clamps to hold your bezels in place. If you want to make sure they do stay in place, what you can do, let me just think about this a minute. So again, we've got, say a piece of metal, we're looking down on top, and say we've got one bezel there, one bezel there, one bezel there. And we need to solder them down onto a flat plate. And the problem is when you solder them and there's flux on them, the flux will make them move and they won't necessarily stay in correct alignment. So what you would do, you would grab yourself a graver, all right, something like this, a little graver. And what you want to do, you want to get your graver and you want to push the graver, put the bezels sort of in place or mark out where the bezels need to go. And you get your graver and you push your graver into the metal and push up little slivers. So again, let's have a look. This would be the side view. So, you know, over here, then you've got sort of like one bezel here. Over this side, you've got another bezel over here. And you're going to put the bezel in the middle. What I would do is get a graver to come down and push the graver into this direction, this way. And what you're going to do, you're going to force up a little grain. And you're going to force up a grain this way as well. So these are little grains that have just been lifted up from the bit of metal. So does that make sense? So if you push in, as you push in, let me try and draw that a bit better. Yeah, so you're going to get little grains that do that. So the graver is going to be like this. So here's the graver this way, and as you push down into the metal, it's going to raise these little grains, and you would use those grains then to go on the inside of the bezel. So then the bezel is sort of placed over those little grains that are coming up on the inside. Am I making myself clear? I think I am, but I'm not too not too sure. So there's I hope I am. And then just raise little grains like that. So here's the bezel. So there's the bezel. And there's little bits of metal that are being kicked up. And then the bezel then will hold over those grains. So when the bezel tries to move, the little grains you've raised up, you only need like 2 or 3 of them, evenly spaced around the inside of the bezel to stop the bezel moving wherever it wants to, and it stays place. It's hard to draw. It's easier for me to show you, but I don't have anything that I can show you. But I hope you just get a graver like that. You push it into the metal. As you push it in, it kicks up a little grain, a little sliver of metal, just a little bit, so it comes up. Does that make sense, Louise? Do you understand that?
I wasn't really listening. I was looking at questions.
Okay.
Am I going to be tested on this?
I think I'm going to test you a little bit later on.
I was keeping an eye on the chat, sorry.
That's all right, no problem. Next question, please. Oh, I can see our stream is excellent now.
Oh, that's good.
Good.
Now, Monica is saying that's totally clear. Yep, household dog. An ingenious trick with the graver. Brilliant, thank you.
You're welcome.
At least somebody's listening. Right.
Oh, go on.
Yeah, what was? Oh, go on.
But no, we do when we finish.
Okay. Where was I? Okay, Lynn has a polishing question.
Yes.
When polishing with my large polish machine, why do I end up having black gunk on my piece instead of it polishing to a bright shine?
Okay, it could be the fact that you may have too much polish on the mop. What you always should do is to dress your mop. And I don't mean get a nice little frock or a nice little blouse to put on it. Or a nice frilly bow tie on it like that. What you want to do is get yourself a mop rake. Right? But they tend to be quite expensive. So what I would do is make your own mop rake. You may be wondering, what is Andrew on about? Has he cracked? Let me show you, let me do another drawing. So what you want to do is get yourself a little bit of wood, perhaps a 2-inch piece of wood. Okay, so that's my bit of wood, like that. Then you want to do is get some screws. What I would do is make some little pilot holes going through the wood. Okay, then you want to do is get a screw that is obviously, that's like a screw, isn't it? Like that, yep. Oh, in fact, should do that, shouldn't it? And what I would do is screw through the holes so you've got the screws, threads, yeah, does that make sense now? So what you've got is your screws sticking through the bit of wood, all right? So it's like a piece of equipment for torture. Yeah, so you screw through the wood so the points are sticking through. Perhaps, you know, 1/2 inch or 1 inch sticking through. Then you use that to hold it against your revolving mop. Especially if you've got like a triply mop. Have I got a triply mop up here? I have, but it's not a worn one. So what you want to do is when the mop is spinning, get your mop rake. It's spinning. Make sure you wear a dust mask and eye protection as well. So it's spinning, you get the rake, you rub it back and forth on the mop itself. That will get rid of all the caked on polish that is on the mop. Once you've done that, take it off, then you add a little bit of polish and then you carry on polishing. And I bet you that would make then your polishing absolutely fantastic, because there is just too much. You don't need that much polish upon the mop. Sometimes you can get the mops, I know I've got mops downstairs, and you can bang them on the desk and they are hard and they shouldn't be that hard. So make your own little mop rake, rake the mops, and they normally say every sort of 10 to 15, 20 minutes of continual use, you should always rake it to get the old polish off the mop and you can apply some new polish and you should be absolutely fine. How's that? Next question, please, Louise.
Marina is asking, have you ever used a mini jewellery bench that sits on top of another table? I don't have the space for a regular bench and was wondering if they were worth the money.
I actually haven't used one, no. Is it because your bench is too low? Or is it because you want to be able to raise it up a little bit higher?
I've got the space for a bench.
But you can use a normal bench, a normal table with a peg. So, yeah. So if you don't have the space to have another bench, why don't you use your normal table and get yourself one of these. And grab yourself, grab yourself one of these. Again, this is by Durston, they've only just released this. And this then will clamp onto your desk. Yeah. Let me then do this. That will clamp onto your desk like, where should I put it? Can't really see it but there. Can I put it over here? Ish, yeah. So perhaps you can put it like that by there. So then you can tighten that up and now you've got your own little peg. If that is going to be too low, we'll then drop your seat a little bit so it's sort of chest level. You could do that, so you don't necessarily have to have a whole new sort of mini bench to sit on top of your normal table. Something like that would be ideal. Plus you're going to need some space sort of below you as well. So if you had a normal table and then another jeweler's table on top, it may be quite restrictive. But you may be able to get something like this. Everyone sells these types of things. And so as I said, this is a brand new one from Durston.
It raises about 10 inches, Marina's saying.
Right, okay. Good idea. It's a good idea, yeah. So if these sort of things aren't really possible for you and you can't raise your desk that you've got or lower your seat, well then yes, I suppose anything that would raise it up a little bit higher.
Books under the table.
Books under the table, yeah.
No, don't do that, That's a joke.
So
I'm not qualified to give any advice, don't listen to me. I don't think
you are
not to give jeweler's advice, no.
So, all right, if it's going to raise it 10 inches, well then, yeah, I think that would be a really good idea. Yeah. Basically, yeah, that would be a good idea. I've never used one. I've always been lucky enough to be able to have benches myself, whether I've made them myself or not. But yeah, if you do need to raise the height, if you can't raise the height of the table or drop your chair, another little level upon the top would be ideal. But just make sure that it is nice and safe and solid, because what you don't want to do is have a bench peg and you're working away and it's all over the place and it's moving. So make sure it is securely fastened down. There we go. Next question, please, Louise.
Okay, Maureen has a question. I have a Dremel and most of the attachments go back and forth between it and the Fordham. Was hoping you could recommend the best brush, wheel, etc. to remove solder.
Okay. Okay. To remove solder. The best thing that I would use are these. These are little sanding drums. You can buy these little sanding drums. It's like a coil of emery paper upon a spindle. You can buy those, or you can grab yourself something like this. This is a split mandrel. You can zoom in on this. As you can see, the mandrel is split. What you would do is get then your emery paper. You would put your emery paper in the split and you would then spin this round and you've effectively made your own little sanding drum. All right, and that will spin round. So you can fasten it with a bit of elastic band, or you can let it spin round and it will stay closed. That would be the best way to remove and also to sand as well. If you want to remove some solder that is raised, you can always use something like these. These are little wheels. These are little hard wheels. You can buy little rubber wheels that look like this as well in various different grades. Something like that would be ideal. And you can also use this with the Dremel or with your flex shaft. Or you can get some, oh, here we go, some Eve Everflex, something like that, I'm not quite sure, or 3M radials like this. These are slightly rubbery, and they are available in various grits as well. And again, these are good for getting onto the surfaces and into the little nooks and crannies between bezels and back plates to get in there to remove solder as well. So something like these little rubber wheels would be ideal. Some people use things like pumice wheels as well. They're ideal. I wouldn't use a burr or anything like that. So these sanding drums or these little Eve Flex wheels would be ideal for removing. As I said, they are available in different grits, and obviously then you use quite a coarse grit to remove it, and then you get then your slightly finer grits. Then I've got my pain in my back pocket. It's my watch. Oh, what is it? My car keys. I don't know. I got holes in my pockets, and I got to put it in my back pocket. Sorry. Next question, please, Louise.
Lorena, could you do a video on proper technique for setting a faceted stone using a hammer handpiece?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Make a note of that, please. Video, proper technique, faceted stone, hammer handpiece. Is that a flush set or is that bezel set? Lorena, is it bezel set or flush set? Just let me know which one it is. Promo plus 100, you're more than welcome. Thank you for expertise in the live chat. You're more than welcome. Good morning, Austin. Good morning, Rio, Brazil. Good morning, or good afternoon, Derbyshire. There's a bit of a difference from Rio to Derbyshire. Sorry, Louise, I'm just taking... Okay, next question.
Okay, doing my job now. Have you done stone inlay on rings or bracelets?
No, I haven't actually. In what way? Because I know there are different ways. You can get sort of like stone chips. You can mix it with a resin and then put that into a groove or a cavity in a surface, or perhaps the groove of a ring. I've done something similar with some stones within a clear resin, and I've built it up into sort of like a cabochon on the top of a box ring. I've done that, and I've never really inlaid anything in rings. Oh, have I? I have done a slate inlay on a piece of silver. It was for a project on At the Bench. We cast the silver ring. I think we did two. We did it in cuttlefish, and we also did it in delve clay. And I cut a groove. I cut a piece of slate, and I glued the slate, and I put it, I think it was diagonally across the surface. So yes, I have. It's easier to use something like slate because you can get your files and you can file it. It's a lot easier doing that than if you actually have a piece of hard agate, something like that. Unless you've got something like a jewel tool that you can shape your piece of stone to fit the gap. But yeah, I have. Thank you. Next question.
Okay, Judy is asking, is there a rule for when you have to leave a hole in a hollow piece? I am making my first ear studs that are hollow, half round, and would prefer not to leave a hole. Oh, my mic's on.
Is it? Talk?
Hello, can everybody hear me?
You should be on now. Yeah, talk.
Hello?
And keep going. Is it moving on there?
Yeah, it's moving on there.
Okay, so yeah, people should be able to hear you.
Negotiator saying my mic is off.
Is it?
Yeah, but
it's on there.
Mm-hmm.
Is it on 2-bar? Bear with me.
Yes.
Yeah, you're on 2-bar there. Yeah.
I'm out of focus. I think your monitor's in focus and I'm not.
Wow, bless. Oh, no.
No, leave it.
No, we'll put you in focus. Hang on. Let's get Louise in focus.
We've just been filming your monitor the whole time.
Now you can see the screen that way, come this way.
Just leave it, it's fine.
No, people want to see you.
No, they don't.
You're far more attractive than me. There we go. How's that? Nice.
Oh, yeah. No, they can hear me now. It's fine. Okay.
It's yes, because yeah.
Did you hear the?
So when the mic goes on to Louise, her mic comes on, and then when I come off Louise, her mic gets turned off. So if Louise talks now.
I'm talking now.
Obviously you can't hear her, but if Louise talks now.
You can hear me, presumably. So don't speak till I'm spoken to then. Is that what you're trying to say?
Okay, next, yes. What was the question? Yeah, hollow, yes. All right, so what you've got to be really, really careful of, if you have a hollow piece and you're heating it up, the air inside will expand. If there's no way for that air to go, it will explode, it'll force open the joints, and if there's a thin bit of metal, it will explode. So that's not what you want. But if you're making a pair of earrings, for instance, and I will draw this again. So if you're making a pair of earrings, say you're making a pair of earrings, the earring is upside down, so it's a dome. Okay, so this is the dome, and you're soldering on a ear wire. So you've got this way, so it looks like this. And what I would do is drill a hole right in the middle, like that, there. Okay, and here's your earring post. So when you heat up the whole earring to put the post into place, because you have got a hole here, where's the hole gone? Wrong one. There it is. Because you've got the hole here, the heat and the air will expand and all the gases then will come out of the hole. No problem at all. Then you put a little bit of solder on the end of the ear wire. You sort of sweat solder on it. You melt it onto the end of the ear wire first of all. Then when you heat, wrong camera, Andrew, there we go. Then when you get your torch, let me go with my torch again. So this is your torch. It's heating up the hole. It's not going to explode because the heat and the air can come out through the hole. Then you've got your earring post here. It's coming down into place. You've got a bit of blobby solder on the end. Flux this area around here. When this gets to the right temperature, you can bring the post down, put it, and you can put it into the hole. Then you don't have to worry. There then will be no hole. But if you have to heat that piece up again, then there is going to be no hole because the ear wire is actually in the hole. So you have to be very careful if you have to ever heat that up again. So you have to make sure that you get it perfectly level. You have to get the post coming down exactly level, perpendicular, and then you solder it directly into the hole, and you also get a better solder joint that way. So that's the best way that you're going to get it, so you'd have no hole in your hollow piece. Nice and easy. There is, sorry Michael, there is buffering. I'm not quite sure why. It keeps going. Stream is excellent, stream is poor. They are working on the telegraph poles around the corner that I saw this morning. So that could be a reason why sometimes we get a little bit of buffering. And I do apologise with that. It's a bit of a connection problem. So anyway, next question please, Louise.
Where was I? Neil is asking, when building a bench, is there an optimum radius for the cutout?
There usually is. This bench I've got here is, as you can see, it's a bit, there we go, yeah. So you can see it's quite, for me, it's quite a shallow curve to this. If we sort of have this coming across this way, it's about 5 inches. For me, it's a little bit too shallow because again, with this bench that we got here, it's got a separate drawer that you've got to pull out. And I don't like that myself, personally. I don't like the fact that I have a drawer to pull out. I would prefer to have the cutout a little bit deeper. Perhaps, I think usually I have these about 19 inches from side to side here. and the cutout then comes around. It's just about half, so I would suppose that's about 8 or 9 inches, perhaps going into, or perhaps even 10 inches. So we got basically a half a circle cut out. Now, in the olden days, and I mean 1800s, 1700s, what they used to do, that's a long time ago, before I was born, that was, Louise. Before, what they would do, that little cutout that they would take out from this part here, from the bench, they would turn that into the stool that then they would sit on, so they would get good use out of the wood. But yes, 19 inches is what I would do, 10 inches depth, then that would give you enough space then to buy one of the trays or the tins that would screw up from underneath the bench to be able to put your pliers around the tin, and then the tin then would be underneath to catch all the lemel from your peg, and then the tin also has a little sieve as well that then you can push all your lemel into the sieve to capture it in the bottom. So 19 by 10, the 20 inches in diameter, a nice semicircle. Next question please, Louise.
Okay, Gabriella is asking, could you please explain shortly salt casting and coconut casting?
To be honest, I've never heard of salt casting.
What's coconut casting?
Is it coconut? Is it? From what I can imagine, you have things like broom casting. You have a broom that's like sticking up, and you moisten the bristles and you pour molten silver or gold into the ends of the broom. So you get those unusual sort of long shapes.
Carve the coconut then?
Maybe. And you also do spaghetti casting. So you have bits of spaghetti like that, and you pour the molten metal down into the ends of the spaghetti, and you get those sort of grooves and the channels, that sort of thing. So I can only assume that, and also you can do water casting where you pour molten metal into water, and you can have ice in it and all that sort of thing. So I can only assume that salt casting would be you have a bowl of salt and you pour the metal onto the salt, into the salt perhaps? Coconut casting?
I like the sound of coconut casting.
Coconut casting.
Probably smells a lot nicer
than cuttlefish casting. Or you would have the coconut in half and you pour the molten metal into the white bit of the coconut, do you think? I don't know. Can you enlighten me? I've never heard of those. Or do you pour the molten metal onto the back of the... That'd be a bit too dangerous. Gabrielle, please, can you just point me in the right direction of salt casting and coconut casting? Because I am quite excited about that. That sounds good, doesn't it? Absolutely. Deep quoting. Right, okay. Next question, please, Louise. Hang on. Whoa. There you go. Next question. There you go.
Ingrid would like a tension ring video. I've made a note of that. Polymer clay. Will a fan that is on my window right by my work desk make it more difficult to reach the needed heat to solder or ball 14 gauge copper wire?
Is your fan there to keep you cool, or is your fan there to get rid of fumes? Because if it's to get rid of fumes, turn the fan the other way around so it's going out of the window, so it's drawing what air is right behind it, taking it out into the open air. That would be the way that I would do it. If it's purely to keep you cool, put it over somewhere else. Put it on the side, but nowhere near to where you're working, and don't have it pointing at what you're working. Have it pointing, say, at your face. I think that's about right, yeah? And I think if the fan is pointing directly at what you're soldering, there's going to be an element of cool air blowing onto it, and it would reduce the heating temperature and the heating power of a torch. So turn it round to suck the heat, not the heat, but the fumes away, and take it out of the open window. That would be the best thing to do. How are we doing?
Okay, sorry, I just lost my place.
No, it's okay.
Logan would like to know, what is a good way to refine silver with an electromelt?
I don't know. We've got some hard questions today. I don't know what an electromelt is. You're coming up with these weird and wonderful ideas now. Electromelt. I don't know. But the only... Okay, so are you talking about refining silver in the sense of refining it to making it pure? Do you have a lot of impurities in the silver that you're going to try and refine it and get rid of all the impurities out of it, or the copper, to try and refine it to make pure silver? Because I don't think, if I can remember what an electromelt is, I don't think that is the correct way of doing it. If you are purely using it just to melt down the silver, yeah, electromelt or electric furnace would be ideal. Don't put too much solder into it. Don't have any items that you're melting down there's going to be too much solder, because that's going to make it a little bit on the brittle side, especially when you come to roll it out. Yeah, I think that would be, because some people's way of refining is different. Some people say you can buy some powder that will refine silver. It doesn't. It just helps the silver melt down, just like borax does. The borax helps the silver melt down and be able for it to pour nicely. But some people's perception of refine is different. So, but if you're looking to have it refined into pure silver, and you've got 925 or sterling silver, something like that, and you want to make it pure silver, you want to get rid of all the impurities out of it and all the copper, you have to use acids to be able to do that. But if you purely want to melt it down, or something like a torch, furnace, electromelt, yeah, you should be totally fine with that. If you're using a graphite crucible, don't put any borax in the graphite crucible. You don't need it. Next question, please, Louise. Oh, hang on a second. I'm getting all my mics and stuff here. Yes, sorry.
Negotiator is saying, sorry, Negotiator, you did say your real name last week and I've forgotten it. I do apologise. Where was it? Coconut fibre on the outside of the... Where did I see it? Coconut fibres on the outside of the coconut.
Oh, cool. Okay. We'll have to get a coconut next time then. Next time we're in...
And also lentil and split pea casting.
Wow. I suppose what we're saying is that we can chuck molten metal on anything.
Oh, well, not anything.
Not on...
Remember your health and safety.
Next thing, you pour it on your daps. Anyway, Louise, sorry, next question.
Romy is asking, what is the best way to make silver tubing?
You, wait there, I've got something that may be of interest. So ideally you're going to need a draw plate. That's why I scratched my nose. A draw plate to be able to pull the silver through to make it completely round. What I would do, I would get some silver sheet. I would, let me just think of this. Okay, so you get a piece of silver sheet, yeah, a long bit of silver sheet, like this. Oh, I can zoom in on this window, can't I? There we go. So we've got a nice bit of silver sheet, looks like that. What I would do is cut a tang on the end. So you're left with this shape, okay, like that. Then what I would do is get myself a swage block. Swage block is this. This is a swage block, as you can see. A little bit on the rusted side, haven't used this for a long time. I should look after my tools really. So as you can see, it's a block with all different curves as you've got there. What I would do is get my piece of flat metal. I don't have a bit of flat metal to hand, but I'll just chuck this bit of solder in here. What I would do is get my bit of flat metal. Okay, so this is my flat metal that you've got with a little tang on the end. I would put it into my swage block like that. I would hammer down with perhaps a domine punch length, so to speak. So you make it round, half round. You keep going along your swage block until you have a piece of metal that is, here we go, is this sort of shape. Like that. So you have that sort of shape. So it's U shape. Then you would then move it around and you would try and get it sort of this shape then. Okay, so you're trying to make it around and around and around until you can virtually then come along and take it all the way like that. So that would be your bit of tubing like that. If that's all you've got and you don't happen to have a draw plate, you can do that and you can simply use these swage blocks to make it round. If you now have a draw plate, you can pull that then through, and that was the idea of having the tang on the end like this, is because then you would have this, this would be slightly tapered here on the ends, if this sort of makes sense, and that then would go through the draw plate. Here it would be your draw plate. This is your draw plate with all the holes in. Yeah, you then would put this through the draw plate and you would pull it through the draw plate and it would make it nicely round and nice and even. I think I've done a few films on At the Bench making up tubing. As I say, even if you don't have a draw plate, a swage block like that, grab yourself a bit of wood and just make a little groove down the wood, and you can do exactly the same thing by just getting a hammer. Get something like a one of these hammers, like a cross pane hammer. There we go, like that. And you can hammer that into the grooves. And you get your metal and you go bang, 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 and you make it your U shape. And that would be the best way to make some silver tubing. But it does need a bit of equipment, but if you haven't, just a bit of wood would be ideal. I think we've got time for a few more questions, a couple more questions, Louise.
Okay, Chris is saying, when I solder an item, is there an easy way to polish the item, such as soldering the jump ring without buying the Dremel?
I would buy a Dremel or something, a Dremel or a flex shaft, something like that, that will enable you to get a polish. The other way to do it would be to get something like, what have I got here? A piece of stick, perhaps an old sanding stick, something like this here, that you could use. And obviously I wouldn't have the sandpaper on it. What I would do is get a little strip of leather and I would glue the leather onto the strip of wood. So the shiny sort of side, the hard side is down. So that would be the piece that's glued against the wood. And you'd have that slight sort of suede side on the top of the wood. Then I would get some polish, just get some polish and literally rub it up and down the suede part of the leather, and you can use that and just rub that up and down over the piece. And I would do that before you solder the jump ring on to make sure that that area is nicely polished and shiny. Once you've done it with this stick, grab another stick, do exactly the same thing, then you can rub a bit of rouge onto that one. Don't get them confused, don't get them mixed up, and don't use the same stick for Tripoli and rouge, because the rouge is a finer polish. I would do that, and then you can then polish up. But what I would do is basically save up as much as you possibly can and buy yourself a flex shaft. A flex shaft is absolutely brilliant. I got one by here. So many things you can do with a flex shaft. That would be my sort of #1 purchase. But if you can't do that, a Dremel or anything in a rotary tool would be ideal. Okay, last question, Louise, I think, is it?
Yeah, well, if you like, yeah.
I'm going to have that two then. Two more questions. Come on.
Okay, can I use Fordham handpiece on a Dremel 40 flex?
Don't think you can.
No.
I don't think the fitting's going to be the same.
You get a different cut.
I don't know which type of Dremel lady's talking about, Matto. I think the fittings are going to be different, but I'm not too sure. You're just going to have to Google Dremel Fortiflex, find out what fitting is on the ends of here. You can get two different types. You can get a European and
Does that come off, that coupling?
No, that doesn't. No, that little sort of flag that's on there.
They do with us anyway, but
No.
we don't use Dremel.
Not with them. That's fixed. That little flag on the end of there is fixed onto the shaft there. But the handpieces, yeah, you can they're interchangeable. But that is fixed on there. So that is fixed. You can't alter that. If that fitting on here is the same as your Fortiflex, no, trust me.
You're the expert.
She's going. Does it unscrew? Does it unscrew? No, it doesn't unscrew. Doesn't unscrew. So, but I think what you have to do is, where's this going on? I would actually have to just Google the Dremel Fortiflex and find out what fitting is on the end, and then just double check on Google, I think, and have a look at some of the images. That would be your best bet. You could get in touch with the manufacturer, yeah, have a chat, find a stockist that sells both and ask them, yeah. Okay, last question, I think, Louise.
Okay, where are we? Must I buy a Dremel to polish my solders, such as a jump ring? Is that what we just answered? No.
It's very similar. Must you buy one? You don't have to buy one, but it does make life far easier. I would always try and save up. These are sort of like 250, 280 pounds. What's that? 320, 350 dollars. I know it's a lot of money, but they are far better than the Dremel. But a Dremel is better than nothing. But very careful using rotary tools when you're trying to clean chains up. Really dangerous. If you have, for instance, say you've soldered a chain, what I would use is a brass brush, something like this. You would put this, you'd use it in some hot water, perhaps some running hot water with a little bit of soap on the bristles. You get the chain wrapped in your hand, and you would just simply go over and you'd scratch brush the chain, and that's far safer and easier to use one of those. Although you don't necessarily get a bright finish, perhaps then you would put it then in a barrel polisher. But I would never really use a rotary. I would never use a Fordham or a Dremel or a bench mounted polish motor to polish a chain unless you're well experienced, because it can be very dangerous. Not only can it whip the chain out of your hands, but your hands could also go with it as well. Not good.
Also, particularly now as everybody's wearing gloves, or perhaps people are wearing gloves more, if your gloves are loose, they can very easily get pulled into a rotary instrument as well, which is something to... So if you are wearing gloves, really tight fitting ones, make sure that they're not sort of loose on your fingers.
Yeah, because I know that the jury's out when it comes to gloves. Some people do wear gloves when they're polishing. Some people say you never wear gloves. I think it's just a matter of preference, but if you do wear gloves, as you say, make sure they're tight fitted, make sure they're not too flappy.
Because it could damage you.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
Your
hand can get drawn in to the mop, and so I think the jury's out when it comes to wearing gloves when it comes to polishing. Perhaps if you're using a little Dremel, that sort of thing, and it's just very localized, it isn't so bad. But as soon as you start using those big bench mounted polishing motors, because they're beasts, especially if you have a high horsepower, it's going to rip.
You don't want your hand going in that,
no, not at all. Is that it then, Louise?
I think so, yeah.
I think
we've gone over again.
The hours fly by,
They simply do,
Well, to be honest, we didn't start, did we, until that's like 25 to. So, everybody, thank you all very much for coming on today. If Jodie, I think I mentioned it at the start, if you're on, let me know if I've sent you the items that you've ordered. I can't remember. Thank you, Jodie, very much for the little druzy that you sent. It is an absolute cracker. In fact, I think we put it on the Instagram. I think I put it on my Instagram account and the At The Bench account, with a little gem-like box with it spinning round. Absolutely gorgeous. So thank Jodie for that, from Hibiscus Days Jewellery up in there in Scotland. We're going to do a film on that for Gillian, because Gillian's been asking me every single week, bless her, can you do a film set in a druzy? So yeah, we're going to do that. Anything else we need to just quickly run through at all on the chat, or not necessarily ask any more questions, but anything we need to have a look at?
No, Jodie's just joined us.
Oh, excellent. Jodie, have I sent you what you ordered? Because I can't remember. I was going through all the orders because I think your order came in just before the 12-hour that we did, and I've got umpteen orders for aprons and for t-shirts that we're still processing, and I can't remember whether I sent your order out. If I haven't, mention it to Louise and we'll make sure we get it sent out, and I will send you something else out because you very kindly sent the druzy, and thank you very much for that. Really do appreciate it. Obviously we shall credit you for sending it to us. Really do appreciate it. Louise and I did our GIA accredited jewellery. What was it?
AJP. Applied Jewellery Professional.
We did that, didn't we?
We did.
We spent the evenings going through gemstone essentials, diamond essentials, and jewellery essentials, and we have completed them. Pleased to say. Mm-hmm. That's with the GIA.
And passed the exams.
We've all passed the exams. Some with flying colours. I think we just passed, didn't we? Not just passed. I mean, but we. I'll shut up now. But congratulations to Louise. It's completely alien, this to you, isn't it? It's becoming not so much alien to you now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and everyone's always learning, aren't they?
Oh my God.
Even you.
We never stop learning. Oh my God.
It's going to go home now and research coconut casting.
That's how I'm alive.
That's going to be his evening.
Is it split lentil and pea casting? It's a waste of good peas, if you ask me. Are they frozen?
Cast them and then have them for your dinner.
Frozen? Are they dried?
Split peas. They'd be dried, I would imagine, wouldn't they?
Peas?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Forteventura, oh my gosh, nice.
Oh, I wish I was in Forteventura.
Oh my gosh, mind you, it's pretty warm out there, but nothing like Forteventura. Okie dokie. Thank you all very much for joining me and Louise today. In fact, still on Louise. There we go. She's far prettier to me. Thank you all very much for joining me and Louise today for the question and answer. It goes by so quickly. Apologies if we haven't got around to answering your questions, but we do our very, very best answering as many as we possibly could. Yeah, I did have here's my whiteboard. I think, are you up to date on that, or is it not? Yeah, here's my whiteboard. It's not much good, is it? It's stuck still in the wrapping. But we're going to take it home because Louise and I are planning world domination. So we're going to put our world domination plans on there and put that in the study to conquer the world. So if any of you are interested in, I know we've got down here, you can't quite see it, but At the Bench. That's our online jewellery training website. We're also producing courses, standalone, one-off courses in all different aspects of jewellery making, right from the start, right until advanced. We're producing these courses. They're not ready to go live yet, but we're producing them. If you're interested, go along to atthebenchcourses.com and register your interest. All I need is your name and your email address. You'll go onto a list, and when we have some more information regarding the courses, we will email you. There's information on there already about what we're planning on doing. So if you're interested in registering for courses that we're going to be producing, it's at thebenchcourses.com, or go to jewellery.academy. And that's jewellery spent the British way, JEWELLERY.academy. That will take you to a registration page, name, email address, and we'll notify you then when our courses go live. Anything else, Louise?
We're just getting some casting ideas now. Pistachio casting.
They're being silly now.
Fusilli casting.
Fusilli casting.
What about the bow ties?
Yes, the bows. That'd be quite. Or the radiator ones. They're pretty good.
The radiator ones.
The ones are like radiators. Radium. Yeah. That's waitress for you.
That's why I haven't seen them then.
Anything else?
I don't
really want to go. I'm not really enjoying it today, even though...
You just don't want to finish cleaning the shop.
I don't want to finish... No, you're right there, actually. No, I don't want to finish. We've been cleaning the shop. We're going to be reopening the shop now next Monday, and it's a lot of work, isn't it? Cleaning it, getting everything in place.
See, the big problem that we have is I'm a big fan of throwing things in the bin. But somebody else isn't.
Yeah, that's me. That is. Yeah, but it's going to come in handy. There is going to be a day of...
No!
Oh, damn.
No.
No?
No. No. Declutter, get it in the bin. Oh, the discount code for the At the Bench half price.
Yeah, and still goes on until the end of June.
Remind
It is
me.
lockdown.
I should know. Oh yes, easy enough, isn't it?
It is lockdown. So yeah, anybody interested in joining At the Bench, it's our online jewellery training website. You can see by here, At the Bench, and also, oh, excuse me.
Just lockdown, not lockdown.
No, just lockdown. Atthebench.com/subscribe. Half price on yearly and 1 year membership. It's only £90 instead of £180. I must admit, I haven't promoted it an awful lot. I do apologise. But if you want to join At the Bench, you're more than welcome. Or if you're interested in the jewellery courses, go to At the Bench Courses or jewellery.academy, and I will write that down for you in a minute. So that's J. Let me just write this on. Here we go. jewellery.academy. Okay, so you can go to that, jewellery.academy, spelled the British way, or At the Bench Courses.com. At thebenchcourses.com. They are going to be absolutely brilliant courses, something that you've never really seen before on anybody else's courses. They're going to be courses they're going to be producing loads of handouts, loads of photographs, loads of diagrams. You can keep the films. The films are yours for free, so there's no 1 year expiration date or anything. As long as you want them, those films are yours. They can always come back. Also, we're going to be doing something quite different at the end of each section of the films. You register, you better find out far more information than what I'm going to tell you here. So At the Bench Courses or jewellery.academy, like that, and you can register. I'm not quite sure yet when they're going to be going live. It's going to be at least a month, 6 weeks, I expect, because we want to produce quite a few so we can get a good load coming on. And it's going to be in addition to At the Bench. Any At the Bench members will be able to purchase the courses separately at a half price, but basically it's all new content. What's going to be available on the courses, you're going to know if you're a member of At the Bench already. They're just going to be standalone courses for people who want to come on, who want to dabble in initially with jewellery, if they're not quite sure if they're going to like it and so forth. And if you want to make particular Christmas presents, we've got some lovely Christmas ideas coming up. It's boiling hot. We've got some lovely Christmas ideas that you can make Christmas tree decorations and presents. Anyway, I'm not going to say too much. Register at jewellery.academy, At the Bench Courses, register your interest, and you'll be sent out information and you can read all the information there. Should we go now?
Yeah, can we just say congratulations to Natalia? She's one of our regulars. She comes on every week and she's just moved home.
Oh, congratulations. You moved home during lockdown as well. Yeah?
You're allowed.
Oh yeah, you are allowed. Yeah, but it's hard. No, I didn't mean it like that. I mean, as in, congratulations to Natalia. She just moved. It's quite a feat during lockdown.
Oh yeah.
That's what I meant.
Yes,
Yeah, that's what I meant. It's quite a feat. Congratulations. I didn't mean it's not allowed. Oh, shame on you. You shouldn't move. It's lockdown. No, but congratulations. Is that it?
I think so, yes. Because we're having a bit of a discussion about the pros and cons of keeping things and throwing things in the bin. But when it's on the scale that you hoard...
I'm getting better. I have been worse.
Remember that programme that was on telly?
No.
And it was an old man who lived on his own and everything was piled up to the ceiling and he just had little corridors. Anyway,
that sounds ideal, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's what you're going to end up like.
We could talk for hours, couldn't we? Yeah. Oh, we've also got other things in pipeline as well. This is going to be a bit revolutionary as well on At the Bench. So again, that's going to be in a few months' time as well. Something that Louise and myself are going to be doing as well. Is that it?
Yeah.
Should we go and have a glass of wine?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you all for joining us today. We're going to disappear. We're going to go into the summer house and have a glass of wine, I think, or sit in the sun. It's a glorious afternoon.
I haven't seen the light of day.
The blinds are shut in here.
It's been downstairs cleaning the shop.
So thank you to Louise for helping out this afternoon again. Her lovely voice and lovely looks. Everybody, take care. We will see you again. Same time next week. What's the date next week? 24th. We would have been open for 2 days. Everybody join us for question and answer next week, 24th of June. Take care. We will see you all very shortly. Don't forget you've got to slide that No, you got to push the button. Oh, you're ready. You're ready. Okay. Thank you, Louise. You're very efficient. Very efficient.
I'm getting better, aren't I?
We're learning, aren't we?
Oh, yes.
We are learning. All right, everybody, take care. I will see you, and we will see you same time next week, 3:30, 24th of June. Take care. Bye-bye.